So I've been in crypto for a little while. Discovered Bitcoin in college back in 2013. My first job was actually in crypto, was at Shapeshift. I was there, let's call it like 2018 to 2020 or so. Um, so I saw firsthand what like a trading company looks like that's consumer facing. Saw what they did well, what they didn't do well, um, and then ended up doing a master's degree in computer science after that during the pandemic. Actually, here, which is why our office is based here. It's on the same campus as we're currently located. Um, and then the next, I guess, cycle was happening. This is 2021. I graduated. Um, the sector was getting really hot. NFTs were a thing. Bitcoin was mooning, and so I got recruited to work at Galaxy as a researcher. I spent about a year and a half there. But towards, I guess, like the last 6 months of my tenure at Galaxy, and that's also where I kind of got my chops in Solana. I kind of became known as like a Solana guy at the entire company. I was one of maybe one or two people in the entire company, 200 people that was bullish Solana. They're obviously very prominent now. They run a big validator, but at the time, my views were very non-consensus. I wrote a really long report on the state of Solana, the first one in the industry back in 2022. My only North Star was Anatolia's own blogs. No one else has written about it at that time. And I fell in love with the ecosystem. Felt like that was the future. And so towards the end of my time at Galaxy, I had actually written another report. It was a part two to that on why Solana will bounce back. It was right after FTX, right when it was trading around $8. Yeah, the entire company. And that's kind of where I'm getting at this story is, I wrote this whole 30 pager on like, hey, here's why the ecosystem isn't dead yet. Here's some metrics. Here's kind of like the damage that FTX did, which is actually very minimal. Like their exposure was very small. A lot of it was just bad press. Anyways, I wrote this report and they wouldn't publish it. They just refused to publish it for some reason. Oh, look, we got Z here. What's up? See if the mic is working. So I'll continue my spiel and let's see if fixes mic. But basically, wrote this report. They wouldn't publish it. They just couldn't get comfortable around. I don't know. I won't get into the details, but for whatever reason, also so that happened, and then I also pitched Solana as a trade, and I got laughed off the floor in December, January 2023, 2022, December, January 2023, and so that wasn't the reason why I left. It was just like that was the time we were in. The actual reason I left was just because I had this burning desire to start something, and it was actually more painful to keep working there than it was to go full risk on and try this out. And so I knew it was like time to leave, and so it took me probably a couple more months to actually like do the thing. But I finally left my job in 2023 to just explore. Roughly, I was just exploring like trading and social across every ecosystem. I wasn't really monogamous to one chain because at the time Solana was very dead. No one was trading anything on there. If they were trading, it was just NFTs. But yeah, I mean the rest is kind of history. Yeah, so I actually met Z at dinner with a friend of mine from Galaxy. It was just the four of us in Lisbon, and we both bonded over being Eagles fans. Or I guess all of us here are Eagles fans.
Go Birds! Go Birds!
Go Birds.
But he was actually showed up with the hoodie, so we were talking about that, and yeah, we were going to some events together just throughout that night. And then the other thing that kept happening in 2023 is I kept seeing him at events that we get invited to the same events. I think we did like a panel together at a happy hour for like crypto consumer. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we got to know each other. We have a lot of mutuals as well. But that's kind of how it all came together. It started, way back in 2022, back when Z, I remember he had like 30,000 followers. I was following him and loved his content. But he's, 20x since then. So a lot has definitely changed.
Yeah.
Man, it's blown up. How you doing, Z?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Dude, man, go Birds. And I'll tell you what, did you guys see the Shane Gillis
I missed it.
speech? Oh my gosh. There's the clip where he's just talking about like bull posting the Birds for a minute and a half straight, while simultaneously bashing the Cowboys. It's pretty much perfection from Shane.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump in. So I want to start with something that is, not like an incredibly, I don't know, like a harder question to get us going. So you guys launched the Bullpen terminal. Gosh, it must have been like a month, 1 to 2 months ago at this point. And, it's always great to celebrate sort of things that exceed expectations. But I also think this channel generally is for builders, and you had some really good insights where you launched the Bullpen terminal. There were certain things that exceeded your expectations, but there are certain challenges in how it went around. And I remember when we were chatting afterwards, you had some good thoughts on what you would have done differently and what were some of the insights. And so, just talk about, hey, like you had this big launch, what went well, and then what did you learn? And then maybe from there we can evolve into where's Bullpen going from here.
Yeah, for sure. I can start this off. I know Z has a bunch of thoughts too. Um, I mean, what went well was, we did what we intended to do, which was kind of highlight things that we found interesting. Especially just with the category of anti-sniping, that was always been a problem in Solana and addressed like now, but it's been a problem all this year. And two, kind of just quickly onboard people that we think are the exact user persona of Bullpen Pro, which is people that are trading, thousands of dollars, maybe 5 or 10K. You'll have a bigger wallet balance versus kind of your moonshot type of people. And get as much feedback on the new product that we launched as quickly as possible. And so, Bullpen Pro took us about 3.5, 4 weeks to go from, because our front end repo was just mobile for Telegram mini app before. And so we went really fast and hard to like hit that deadline, and we did. And that was just kind of like a great North Star for us to like be motivated to get it out so fast and to work the team really hard. So in that sense, it did exactly what we wanted to. Now, as far as like, with the benefit of hindsight, I think when you do these types of things, these things being, these big launches with partners and stuff like that, it can be really hard sometimes to optimize for like 3 different stakeholders at the same time. Because everybody has a different goal, and sometimes those goals don't exactly line up with what your best interests are. And so it just got to the point where I just think it's a case of a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of stuff. The surface area for things that could go wrong just kind of increases exponentially when you have so many people involved in a launch. But that's the type of thing you don't really, in theory, like it sounded like a slam dunk. In practice, again, like there's just a lot of aspects of how we did it, how we structured it, that probably could have been done better, with a second shot there. But at the end of the day, like experimentation, it's not always a smooth
And you
journey.
guys got a ton of new users, right, on the platform through the launch.
Yeah, we did, which is great, and a lot of them have stuck around and are actually our biggest kind of proponents or our loudest users in our Discord, giving us the most concrete feedback. And so in that sense, like it was a huge success, and it kind of like just like a step increase function in just the product and also just the engagement with the product. But I don't know if Z has other thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I think we definitely saw a lot of good inflows of people testing out the different product, which is really good. We got a lot of good feedback, and hopefully avoided a lot of the negative feedback that people had with what we did after the initial situation. So I think that went well, but I think it's good that people can see all the different parts that we have live now. So
Awesome. Yeah, one of the biggest insights I took away, and by the way, one of the things I loved about it is its willingness to take risk. I think, as a startup, you have a certain amount of capital and runway. And so you have to go big in terms of collaborations, in terms of announcements. And so a lot of stuff I really respected there and liked. One of the best insights I think, Sal, you told me was it's hard to do something new and partner when everyone else is also doing something new. So there is a new DEX going live, there's a new coin going live, there's a new trading platform going live. And so it's almost like too many moving pieces simultaneously where a lot of dependencies were created. And so there created some challenges, let's say, that were almost impossible to foresee. So I think for all the builders out there, that'd be my first thing is when you go live with a partner, definitely consider how many new pieces of code are being pushed simultaneously and the amount of dependencies between the different parts of the user experience. Because the more things you're adding, sort of the complexity scales exponentially, not linearly. But I thought that was a really, really good insight and really thoughtful on you guys.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way to put it. Basically, like again, like with the benefit of hindsight, if we're gonna do this anti-sniper thing, maybe they should try a launch or two first, and then we're like the third one, right? That's like the right way to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, for
Probably would
sure.
have avoided 90% of the issues just doing that alone.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt.
Got it. So one of the things that's I think really been surprising to me is how successful trading terminals have been. I mean, I think the likes of Axiom, the likes of Bullpen's Telegram bot. I think these trading terminals and trading bots have wildly exceeded the revenue expectations of what people would have expected 1 to 2 years ago. And I think the other part that's generally surprising is a lot of finance is geared towards making like improvements in fee structures and lowering the price of trades. But a
Yeah.
lot of these platforms still charge 1%
Yep.
or more in some cases, yet they have countless users piping millions of dollars per day through the platform. So maybe like why are trading terminals great businesses? Why are users willing to pay this high amount? What are the features of a trading terminal and why people use them versus connecting to Jupiter or connecting, trading within the Phantom wallet as an example?
Yeah, yeah. It's a question that I think everyone has not thought deeply about until recently because of the revenue numbers. Whereas 2 years ago, most VCs would laugh at a Telegram bot. It's like, oh, this 1% thing, it's going to last 6 months and then you're toast.
Yeah, who wants
Um,
to trade on Telegram? Why would people want to do that, right?
yeah, and in fact, like they've all pretty much endured. Maybe they've fallen a little bit from their peaks, but they're all really sustainable businesses. So to answer your question though, what you see in meme trading is a microstructure, a market microstructure that's very unique that hasn't really been seen before because for the simple reason fast entries, sub 10K entries. And so if you can get someone a sub 10K entry, their upside is like, super, super, super high and such that the 1% that they're willing to pay, it's worth it to them. And what they're getting for that 1% is two things. One is faster execution. So, they're usually routing orders through a faster RPC. They're adding a tip in many cases, or maybe they're just straight up sniping a token that's being launched or sniping a token that's migrating. And two, they're getting discovery of these things that are launching. And so if you actually look back to last year, Photon was the first trading terminal that like used a GUI. And they also invented the meme scope, which is like that 3-column layout you see on all of them,
Yeah.
newly launched, graduated, graduating. So what they did was they're like, hey, everyone's just launching Pump.fun tokens every like 2 seconds. It's all bots doing it essentially. We're gonna build a UI that lets you just quickly click launch token, and in many cases, other bots will buy it up, so you're essentially getting free profits from those. It's very maybe the strategy has cooled down, but the demand to run that strategy has not. And so that's kind of why like those 10 to 15 seconds you save versus like using Jupiter or using Phantom versus like being on a terminal or being in Telegram and like aping in one click. That savings is worth the 1% because the idea is you're going to make a 10x or more just by being so early.
Wow. And so why is it better than what Jupiter can? Is it because these trading terminals index more quickly and they've specialized in a way that other trading platforms haven't?
Yeah, so and it's important to note like Jupiter's made a lot of improvements in their product versus like 6 months to a year ago, and so they've gotten a lot closer to like what you can offer or what the terminals offer. But even today, there's still a gap, and so the terminals they're spending money on running their own RPC. They're investing in having faster data, whether it's the price data of the token or the feed of tokens that people are trading off of. Um, and so you're kind of seeing Jupiter like start to make their form factor look more like that.
Mhm.
You even saw Pump.fun themselves also like go down the stack and build their own take on a terminal interface that's really fast.
Yeah, and their advanced tab, you can go click it and you can start to have that
Mm-hmm.
experience. Yep.
Yep. Even Phantom, like they invested a lot of resources in execution, where I think they have 3 different aggregators on the back end that covers newly launched tokens, really liquid tokens, and they're optimizing for execution speed. So the terminals have essentially forced everybody to like improve their execution, and then they just continue to invest in more ways to execute faster. Embedded wallets just simply will execute faster as well, just because like you're not having the user sign a transaction and go back and forth. It just does it like all at once.
Yep.
So all of that kind of adds together to like save the user time, which theoretically will make them more money.
Yeah. And so, maybe Z, I guess you guys, both there's a number of trading terminals out there. I think your vision for Bullpen Pro is larger than that of just a trading terminal. But what's the story for why somebody should use Bullpen Pro versus another trading platform? What's either the current set of features you have or the future vision that should will win users hearts and minds and ultimately dollars and trades?
Yeah, I'll say that our core vision is flows through to that reason why we want Bullpen to be the place you can do anything on chain, whether that be Solana, whether that be trading perps on Hyperliquid, everything all in one place, and also have the ability to find and discover new tokens all in the same area. So I think the like all encompassing, while also being as fast as possible is the core reason why. That's like where our competitive advantage lies, like against other terminals that are trying to do similar things.
Like one thing that we've demonstrated is like we can kind of see the future as far as like what products people will find interesting or will want to trade. And so we were one of the first to add Hyperliquid back in March. Besides PvP, there was no others, and now everyone's adding them. Phantom finally added them last week. And that doesn't stop with Hyperliquid, right? Like there's other things that we're currently working on that we think will be the meta for trading or be really fun to trade that we've already started work on. That will be essentially like, our mission is to make on-chain trading as easy as possible in one unified interface. It's going to feel like a sex, meaning you just fund your wallet one time.
Gotta love the sex. Love the
sex. Exactly. But you just fund your wallet one time, and you can just transfer money between whatever account you want, and you're now able to trade all that stuff. We figured out all the complex logic of the wallet management, the account creation management, for regardless of what platform you're trading on. And our thesis as a company is so different from mission, but our thesis is that every piece of content will yield a tradable market, right? And let's take an example here. That meme, the Grok meme, that anime girl.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? That's like something you might see on Twitter. Maybe you'll see it on TikTok or whatever. But like that essentially created 3 different tradable assets. If you really think about it, you have the meme coin that ran to 70 million, and it's still like 50 million in like 2 days. You have the world coin. Like you have views on like on big majors that might change because, hey, if XAI is doing this, what's the impact on ChatGPT? Like, how do I express a view in size on the liquid market? It could go gig long WorldCoin or go giga short WorldCoin. And then you start to have things happening that are really fun in prediction markets. Like, all right, does that mean that Twitter's or XAI's model is going to be the best by the year end? And so, like, that's the future that we're super excited about and super gigabold up about. Is we think all the funnest ways to express a view on something, whether it's news or pop culture, is going to happen on chain. We kind of know where this is all going as far as who's going to power those rails. And so now our job is to make using those rails as easy as possible and connecting those rails back to the content as seamless as possible. And that's kind of like the vision behind the entire company, and frankly, why the company is named what it is. They're kind of trading next to where ideas can pop up.
Yeah, I actually love that. And maybe to expand, like when I think composable markets are extremely powerful. And let me give you an example. Before Polymarket, if you had an outlook on where interest rates were going to go, it actually is like kind of a complex trade for the average person. You might need to get access to, you can't just use, Robinhood or any of these platforms. You need to sign up to likely like an interactive brokers or some superior level platform to implement a set of outlooks on the dollar, either on like the 1 year or the 10-year, to try to capture, do I think interest rates are going to go up or down? You had to build a pretty complex set of trades and access to a platform to make it happen. And Polymarket now just made it so that way, I can just go yes or no to what do I think is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so like democratizing some of these trades that people might want to make, but it's challenging to express an opinion. So essentially making every decision tradable. But then as part of that, having new ways to pair trade or put these trades together. For example, I might want to do a trade on, or if interest rates are going to go up, but I also want to hedge against that. And so now you can hedge essentially. You could imagine the price of Bitcoin relative to a Polymarket market on our interest rates going to rise. And it's like no platform today that you can do that. And so composable markets are making, to your point, hey, buy this meme, but also long XAI, right? Or OpenAI, not OpenAI, XAI is part of that. Like that's a really interesting set of trades that you can start bundling. In fact, I'm surprised that it's still not easy to do pair trading where you want to long
Yeah.
something, short something else. You got to kind of manually size things. I'm surprised that's not incredibly trivial yet. And I do think that's where not even sophisticated traders, I'd say like smart thinking people that want to express opinions and point of view and bet on it or wait or invest in against it. I think that's where this is going. Do you have any other thoughts on what that might look like, or what are some of those initial markets you might be trying to make composable or tradable?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it before with the with the Grok example, where if we can essentially like take any piece of content, let's just take Twitter for example, because everyone's on it, and just map it to what things can you express a view on based on what the person's saying. Is there a meme? Is there something in the prediction markets world? Is there some sort of major that's available in Hyperliquid, which we think will, by the way, like I think that pool of assets that can be tradable on Hyperliquid, like the majors, whether it's equities eventually or whether it's even just spot tokens, like you saw Pump get listed within the same day.
Yeah.
That's all this stuff's coming on chain, and that ended up being the most liquid venue to trade Pump, the token.
I know. Isn't that wild?
It's wild, yeah. And like that is kind of that first step that you're going to see. Equities, I think, will follow probably this year. And so now you can kind of, to your point, like map content to multiple kind of venues. The most degen side is obviously going to be memes always, but that's maybe where the upside is. The more kind of right curve might be just sort of playing around with perps and prediction markets. But like people, I think one of the other reasons like people haven't really adapted these platforms yet is just the access isn't super intuitive to go from point A to point B. Like if I saw a video on TikTok of those baddies for Zoran when he was running for mayor, like in that moment bet on him in the election, I would have, and I would have gotten a good entry probably because it takes a while for those videos to circulate. But because like the distance, the gap is so wide, and I also wasn't even aware of that market maybe at the time. I think a lot of people might not just be aware that there is in fact a market for that. That's where a lot of friction comes. So we're trying to just close that gap, and I think that will just mass increase adoption of on-chain trading in general, not really for one specific protocol.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. So trading everything is a core part of the thesis. In fact, I think that's what we're going to title this episode trade everything.
Literally, yeah.
But social was also a key part of the initial, let's say, vision for Bullpen. And so in this trade everything, you're taking signals, let's say social signals, and putting them together, creating intelligence that can be tradable. But trading with friends is sometimes better than trading on your own. Is social still a part of the Bullpen vision? And if so, how are you guys implementing it today? Or if you can share, plan to implement?
I think there's kind of two ways we think about social. And I could start with maybe two ways we will do it, and then one way we probably won't do it. So let me start with the way we won't do it. And, it's funny because you just saw Coinbase announce their new Base wallet, the successor to Coinbase Wallet. They finally renamed it, by the way. It only took them a few years.
Yeah.
The wrong way to do it is to try to build a new feed of social content. And there's a lot of reasons. I thought about this a lot, but I think it really comes down to one simple fact is like social content needs to be educational or entertaining. But when people are trading stuff, I don't really think there's any point in like looking at entertaining content to like inform a trade. Now there are exceptions. I think I made an example just with like memes of people voting for Zoran because they're hot or whatever. But in general, like we don't want to build a place where people have to make content. I don't think that's a great idea. Like good content exists elsewhere. It's really hard to like bootstrap that from scratch. And so for us, the social strategy just centers on how do we embed the product where people are already conversing. And I think in the more medium, longer term roadmap, that would look like, hey, you could just tag our bot on Twitter or even like on TikTok or IG. You could interact with us in Telegram already today, and we're already in like 1,800 chats. And so like putting us adjacent to where the conversations are happening is where you kind of can get signal and also just have those fun moments with your friends. So that's probably like close to what the form factor will look like. But right now we're mostly focused on just the core pillar of execution and kind of getting people access to these markets in the first place. But I don't know if Thea has other thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I would say that the core piece on the social side is that, especially with crypto, a lot of how people come to ideas on thesis and around ideas typically come from accounts or in group chats that people are following or interacting with. And so indexing on that and where people are getting their ideas from is kind of, who has higher trust value and who you should be looking for ideas or collaborating with in the future. So tapping into that, but not necessarily forcing people, as Sal said, to come up with those ideas in a completely new place. But I guess like allowing visibility into those people and those insights, so other people can look at them.
So what do you guys think of, I mean, just hot takes. What do you guys think of Kaido? I mean, I think they're aiming to do that where they're trying to understand which voices matter. And I know some startups are finding success using the Kaido platform to source and incentivize KOLs or thought leaders and making sure they're finding the right people. What do you guys think about? I mean, that seems like it'd be an interesting signal that you would use in any sort of algorithm is, this content, not just the likes and the interactions, but actually like how important is this person? What do you guys think about Kaido generally? What are they doing well, or perhaps what's an area they can improve?
Yeah, actually was one of the biggest accounts on Kaido for the airdrop. I got a pretty solid airdrop from them when they launched. So Kaido's cool with me. Yeah, but I think in general it's smart to focus the way that they're focusing. I know it's typically very hard for crypto projects to allocate their marketing budgets, just because a lot of the ways that happens in crypto is typically very scammy. And so like by doing it on the back end instead of doing it on the front end where you have to get the engagement from like real posts and real quality content before you get rewarded for it, I think it kind of flips the entire marketing way crypto does marketing on its head. I actually think it is pretty productive. I'm curious how they I don't know if they plan to, but how they plan to extend that outside of just crypto protocols. But I think it works well. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I would say like I agree. I've been following that team since literally I remember when I left Galaxy in 2023. Like I was first seeing demos of the product. It's very impressive. It's a very good team. It's very talented, and they do directionally are very good at just kind of helping you uncover who has something important to say. I do think things got a little bit complicated with the token and the incentives around that, and the whole yapping thing, which was a great campaign. And also competition has heated up a bit with platforms like Cookie.fun. But I think I agree with you, Carl, in the sense that like it's better for us to try to find ways to embed these types of data than not, because it is directionally helpful to get a sense of how important is a voice and having that weigh into, like if we were to make a doom scroll feed of sorts, like I think that would be a good way to help weigh like what types of content shows up versus what doesn't. Now, I think the issue with crypto though, and specifically, which Kaido does a decent job of solving generally, is like oftentimes the smaller but not too small accounts have the most signal. The really big ones can often have perverse incentives in many cases, where they might be saying something that more aligns with what they're trying to accomplish from a business standpoint. And like you kind of hear about this just all the time on the timeline, just people getting upset at big accounts for doing X, Y, or Z. Whereas like maybe the smaller ones, they have more to prove. They're trying to earn their way up the ranks, so to speak, and so they'll give you better alpha. So there's always kind of a misalignment incentives that's hard to parse through, but directionally, what they do gets you closer there than not incorporating their data.
Yeah, it's almost like you need AI on the back end also validating that something signal, like rather than other people liking it. It's like you also need AI say, hey, this is actually unique or correct or factual. I mean, again, I don't think we want to go into a culture of fact checking. So I think that actually becomes way less fun and not a good amount of humor, which I think a lot of social stuff is intended to be. But nonetheless, I agree. I think it's a really good point. So I guess where from a market perspective, do you guys, your product is definitely directional based on the market, right? The more people are trading, the more people are into long tail risk assets, which memes generally are. I'm assuming it's going to have a huge impact on your product. How, where do you think we're at in the market cycle? And maybe Z, we'll start with you. Um, I know you've been posting takes on Solana. I don't know, what are your thoughts on the recent Ethereum movement? Like, 100% over the past couple months. Do you have any thoughts on where you are in the market? And is there any one or two tokens you want to opine on?
Yeah, generally I think that Q1, a lot of people expected the Trump and current admin's presidency to be super bullish for crypto. And in the beginning of their presidency, like after the inauguration, their focus was heavily on the tariffs, and heavily on, well, what they said was trying to reduce spending in the government. And they voiced very outwardly that their focus was on Main Street and not Wall Street. And so people took what they were saying seriously and obviously took off risk in response to those statements. And I think until like the pause, which is in, I think April 9th was the tariff pause, 90-day pause. But after that, and after like bonds were a little shaky, they basically reversed course pretty heavily.
Taco Trump.
Yes, yeah, pretty heavily. Yeah. And like Elon's not with, I think, Doge anymore. They're not focusing heavily on that. The bill that the spending bill, stimulus bill that they're passing, it's going to be a ton of stimulus into the economy, and they're not as like focused on the tariffs as they were beforehand. And then Bessent and Trump are pretty much directly saying that they want rates lower and they want the dollar weaker. So it's like their intent now is to grow their way out of the debt situation that we have macro-wise. And you saw this response, 30 stocks. I mean, V reversed all the way back to all-time highs, and crypto kind of followed after that. So I think we're generally in a bullish environment. Time to be risk on. My main concern, honestly, with crypto in general is that I feel like the premium that L1 and L2 tokens were afforded last cycle, because of how well Ethereum did during 2020 and their DeFi explosion, the Cambrian explosion, there was nothing to map how high these blockchain tokens should be valued as. And Ethereum did really well because there was nothing to map it to. It went from like 80 to whatever, 5K, or 4.8K. And also at the time we know ZERP and COVID stimulus and all of that. So a lot of L1s, and Solana also did well that cycle. So a lot of L1s were mapping to ETH and Sol, but I think that we haven't seen, I guess, like Ethereum's numbers are basically lower highs than they were last cycle, except for maybe I think TVL and I think Aave has done pretty well. They've made new highs, but most of the activity on chain for the L1 has been lower, and it also hasn't made a new all-time high. The only chain that was able to do a lot better than it did last cycle was Solana, and I think it's evidenced by Solana making a new all-time high and pretty much all-time highs in every other metric this cycle. But a lot of the other L1s, if you don't have that new thing, which was DeFi in 2020, there's no real. They're kind of mapping to ETH and Sol. And if comparatively, if they don't have the users that those platforms do, then why are they afforded these billion-dollar valuations? So a lot of the altcoins have underperformed this cycle. And my main concern is like people, why would you allocate towards alts in like the whatever billions range when there's crypto equities that you can allocate towards like Robinhood, Coinbase, Circle? All these equities have done well and kind of expressed the same bullish thesis in crypto. So my thesis now, this is kind of, sorry, a long answer. My thesis now is that is that applications is where the upside is in crypto, especially for alts. And I think that Hyperliquid was the first iteration of this, where they internalize all of their core applications revenue directly to the token. And it's still an L1, but it's more of an app chain, I would say. It started as an app chain than an L1. And I think that we're going to trend in that direction where these applications have the ability to do really well and have like Pump.fun is one example of an application that's done really well and has their own revenue. Because crypto now has the infra available that you're not restricted by like high fees or like low TPS. You can build whatever you want in crypto, whether that's on a specific rollup or on Solana or whatever else. And so I think applications are where a lot of the alpha is going to be, and they typically come out at lower vals than these L1s, which are multi-billion out of the gate. And so like investing from an investing point of view, that's kind of where I'm looking at what I'm looking at. But yeah.
Yeah, I generally agree. It's interesting. It's interesting that Solana is continuing to post all-time highs in terms of blockchain metrics,
Yep.
but not in terms of price. Like it's still, I'm not surprised that ETH has pumped while Solana hasn't. I think there's a large entrenched interest, but yeah, I'd say like I'm more worried about Solana than I've been since FTX days.
Oh wow.
In terms of, I think Solana's been really successful for a while, and I feel like people are a little bit resting on laurels, or sort of having entrenched narratives rather than realizing that there's a lot of new developments in crypto that Solana is not the category leader in. So it's funny, people were saying $1,000 Solana. I was like, bro, like that, I definitely have a way lower price target for Solana than 1,000, and I think that was a good. I think that was a good call. But yeah, I guess. And the other thing on alts, just to expand on what you said, I'm curious if you agree, Sal, is like, people always have alt season, and really Bitcoin dominance is probably the best proxy of alt season. And, sort of Bitcoin dominance goes down to 30% during alt season, up to 60%. And I just think this cycle, Bitcoin is just going to, I don't think we're going to see Bitcoin dominance at 30% this cycle. I think it's just, there's so much capital that's flowing into crypto that is not going to participate in any of these crazy alts. They're going to participate in Bitcoin, maybe ETH, maybe Solana, maybe the crypto equities. I totally agree with that, by the way. The hoods, the Coinbases, et cetera. That it's not going to make its way down to this weird L2, L3 shit that normally would get a lot of volume. So yeah, I'm definitely actually positioned a little bit more conservative this cycle than other cycles, because I don't think we're going to have the same exuberance of alt season. I think it's going to be concentrated in a couple high value assets. It's not going to be this general spread of anything and everything goes up.
Yeah, pretty much in complete agreement there. Basically, we're just going to see a consolidation. Now, the alts that do well will do very, very well, but it's not too dissimilar from, I guess, like the .com bubble from the early 2000s, where all the websites went up for no reason. Afterwards, we eventually consolidated to what's now the Mag 7, essentially, or Fang, a few years ago. I suspect something similar like that's going to happen, especially just as like the infrastructure stack of being a crypto builder, it's really consolidated a lot. People were considering multiple L2s just a few years ago, and now you pretty much have a couple of options if you're really serious about getting users in crypto, and that's it. And so and then there's a lot of downstream effects of that, just on the effect of that it will have on alts. The only counterpoint to this might be like the emergence of, and I know you guys have mixed feelings on like the ICM meta, whatever you want to call it, but it is kind of interesting. Like you're seeing apps just launch straight up with a coin like from day one, and getting vibe coded up in into multi-million-dollar market caps. There's probably something there, and that's probably like the only counterpoint I'll make with respect to alts, that I just see a lot of liquid investors get really excited about that. But maybe it's going to be barbell, right? Maybe it's just this huge consolidation on one end, and then just like kind of a lot of random, vibe coded tokens that have revenue and users, but starting very low cost bases.
Yeah, I mean, even look at Trenches. And by the way, the fact that we're on here is not an endorsement of the Trenches token. This is not a, maybe it is, I don't know, but not an endorsement by Sal or Ansem of the Trenches token. But as an example, like this, the whole vision for this was we're live streaming crypto native content. Let's do it on a crypto native platform. Like that was the vision. And for people that were there day one following me on X, this token's trading above 1 million pretty consistently, and you could have gotten in it 20K, 50K if you were early. And those types of opportunities are pretty amazing when you can hit them. And if you're following the right people, looking for the right content, there's going to be a lot of new opportunities that come up in those really early stage areas. I think the thing that's going to happen though, Sal, is there's going to be a number of winners that come out of these really early stage companies. Mm-hmm. But then it's going to happen eventually, like in the ICO era, where people are just funneling money into everything, and then people were completely rugging. And so I think you will have capital there, but I think that meta is going to run its course over time.
Yeah. I actually work out, like at least how it currently stands, but some permutation of that, I do feel like will get some traction, but we will see.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we do on this channel is this is really for builders, and so we always do a demo. Basically, every stream we aim to do a demo of a product and showcase and highlight the great stuff that's being built in crypto. So, Sal, if you're able, I'd love for you to just walk through the Bullpen product, especially Bullpen Pro, and it's just an opportunity to point out some of the features, show how the product works, so that way people can go ahead and download this afterwards and start using it.
Yeah, fantastic. Give me one sec here. I've never shared on Pump.fun before.
By the way, some insight is for people that do decide to launch a business with a token, definitely make sure you buy up a good amount of the supply at launch. I definitely did not buy enough Trenches token. And so now I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, I have very little exposure relative to where I should. So that's definitely a big. And you know why is, I don't know. I mean, Ansem, you probably know this better than anyone, but back in the day, it was always a function getting these things out of the trenches of how much supply the dev has. And so I was like, oh, I don't want to have too much because people are going to think this is a rug, and it's not. So I think I bought 3.4% like when I minted the coin. But now I realize, hey, if I actually want to get more employees on board, like actually start really growing this, I don't have enough incentives. So it really does need to be, it is so far been a lot of organic traction, but I definitely recommend for any of the, creator capital market pursuers out there, definitely hold at least 50% at launch. They'll just give you a little bit more flexibility.
So a lot of new features are coming kind of in the next week or so, but this is the current iteration of Bullpen Pro. You can access it by just going to app.bullpen.fi, or if you just type in bullpen.fi, there's a link that'll just take you right here. So you sign in with a Google account, and once you're in, this is the first thing you see. This is our Solana tab. So these are just kind of tokens that are trending in the trenches.
There you go, baby. Trenching. It's a term. It's a term.
Exactly. And kind of show you a lot of the data that you normally would like to see in a type of terminal, real-time updates, transactions, holders, traders, and so on and so forth. And yeah, because it's an embedded wallet, you can kind of just buy it pretty easily, pretty quickly, and just immediately just have it there. If I want to just sell this, I have no idea what this is. I'm just going to sell it now, so don't forget. Same idea, and you can manage all of your. We have 2 accounts for you right now, and future ones will also show up here. So you have kind of your Solana account and all the tokens that you would hold there, as well as if you have perps open. I just closed them out earlier, but we can open another one real quick.
Yep.
Maybe I'll just go a little bit lighter on the leverage here. And yeah, I made it. The idea is you have an account for Solana, you have one for Hyperliquid, one for basically whatever category of thing you're trading, and in the future we'll kind of abstract that down to just one account. But let's open this, and before we do that, actually, we have a pretty advanced take profit stop loss type of panel. This is actually inspired heavily by FTX, how they did it, because they did a really good job. And so you can kind of see all right, if it goes up 5%, I'll make $80. If it goes down, let's say 10%, the most I'll lose is 175. So kind of a 50 or 0.5 risk reward ratio there. So you can now set those, and I have, I'm putting up about $116 at risk essentially. And so you can just kind of confirm that. Obviously on the back end, this is all using Hyperliquid. And so now we have our position here. It shows up at the bottom. You can close all of your positions at once if you want to, or you could just view it right here in this tab. So it's essentially like your Hyperliquid wallet, and manage it. If you're close to liquidation, we'll send you a notification here, as well as if you've connected your Telegram. It'll also send you a DM. Let's also try one other quick thing here. Let's just pop back to these funding flows. And so if you want to move money, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but the idea is making things feel like a sex. And so I have 16 SOL or whatever here. Maybe I want to just top up margin. Maybe I'm close to liquidation. This is all you have to do. It's already selecting your perps account. You just hit that. And in about 15 seconds or so, it's just going to do the kind of solver-based bridging process for you. It does multiple steps because we have to make an Arbitrum wallet for you, and then we use that to then deposit back into your HyperCore account. And so I think it's already done. And if you jump here, so you can already see like I've lost a little bit, about $100 on my Sol balance. And now I have
This was an
910.
expensive podcast for you.
Yeah. Well, just moving money around,
Yeah.
But now you see basically, a few seconds, I have a bit more margin here. And you could do the same thing in the reverse, right? So like, it's the same idea. Could just kind of move money. If there's a hop that's actually, if you want to like top up your spot and buy some hype, the same idea. And we kind of just tell you, all right, you're not going to pay a gas or a network fee. This is how long it'll take. If you want to move to spot, because hyperliquid withdrawals take 5 minutes, so now that's why the time goes up there. The network fee,
Yep.
they always charge $1. And so we kind of just like have these opinionated ways of moving money around and abstract them away and just make it feel the same and consistent like a centralized exchange. And this will apply for whatever products we add in the future. It's kind of that same consistent idea. But we're launching a bunch of features next week. One of them is going to be, well, obviously Meme Scope, everyone has that, but another one called Runners. So this will be like our AI kind of detects what's really volatile, but recently like bottomed out essentially in Pump.fun. And you can kind of see it. It's a really fun view. We're, designing and implementing it as we speak right now. If I look over my shoulder here, I can kind of see our progress on it with one of the engineers. And so just imagine like a really dynamic kind of view to just help people trench in a more fun way. And a bunch of other like kind of terminal-esque features that are also on the roadmap. But that's kind of like the current form factor of the product. Having spent 4 to 6 weeks kind of going 0 to 1 on this UI, we're pretty happy with how much progress we've made, but there's still a lot to do.
No, it's super clean. I mean, one of the reasons I wasn't as early to Hyperliquid as I should have been is doing that bridging. I was like, you know what? I just don't have time for this, right? I didn't see the immediate vision right away. And so I was later to Hyperliquid than I should have been. And so I think making it incredibly clean, easy, spinning up the wallet, and having that unified view, I do think would be pretty awesome. And it seems like your users loved it already, from what I hear.
Yeah. They're very loud, sometimes demanding, but at the end of the day, we're very much indebted to our users, and these guys that are on our, especially on the perp side, they trade a lot of volume. They have a lot of great insights into what they want.
Love it. All right. Well, this has been awesome streaming with you guys. Congratulations on Bullpen Pro going live. For everyone that's listening, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a really terrific product. Close this out. We started with trade everything. We're going to end with trade everything. I guess Sal and Z, close this out on that vision. And yeah.
I mean, that the future of trading is going to be on-chain products, and those will be the most fun, where the most returns are to be made, and will be the easiest place to access those. So stay ready.
Stay ready. There you have it. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
Awesome.
Thanks, Carl.
Later.
See you later.